So the 1.07 update was released yesterday, and with the release of this update brought some pretty major changes to the game. Now, I've sat here the last 12 hours or so grinding out the game to see how people would adjust to it, and it didn't take long for people to adapt to it. So I've seen enough adjustments being made to where I can make a list of pros and cons to this update. Once again, how are you guys doing? It's your boy XTheeRobJames coming at you with another video, and we are just a few subscribers away from hitting 100 subs. It would be thrilling to see that mark finally get crossed. So if you're brand new to the channel and you like the content that I'm pushing out, feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on all post notifications if you find yourself coming back to my channel. And if you're already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and drop a like for this video if you found this information useful. Now, for those of you that still don't have the full information for the update, I will leave a link down in the description box for those patch notes. You can click on that link and check that out, because I will only be covering a few of those here in this video, as I've noticed the obvious pros and cons to them. Now, first I want to get into the footsteps. Now, this is the second time that Infinity Ward has had to nerf the footsteps. The first time they nerfed it, there wasn't really any difference at all. People could still hear you coming from the length of a football field away, and the sound whoring was probably worse than it was the first time around. Well, this time they went on ahead and touched it again, and there is a pretty noticeable difference. I found that I was able to challenge some of the spots on these maps a little bit more than I became accustomed to, and I did it with pretty considerable success. Now, with this comes a con to it, all right? Now, camping is still highly encouraged in this game, so we have to keep that in mind. When you get too close to an enemy, unless you have your dead silence activated, then they're going to hear you coming, and they're going to have the full ADS waiting for you to turn that corner. And another one is, I noticed that back spawn camping has gotten worse. Despite the buffs to the SMGs, people are still using the ranged weapons, and they're going to sit in the back of those spawns waiting for you to come to them. And this is pretty prevalent on the larger scale maps. Now, I don't have a flat out con for this next one, but the callouts from your players, they have little to no effect on the gameplay, which I think is a good thing, because every time I would flank, and keep in mind I'm just speaking from personal experience, when I would flank and I get the drop on an enemy, my character would do a call out, they would know that I was there, and then next thing you know, I'm the one getting melted instead, and then that flank that I worked so hard for goes for nothing. But I'm glad that they did something about the callouts. Me personally, I felt like that they weren't necessary in the first place. I mean, you can say that they're necessary to a degree. I left my subtitles on because you might see a very important call out being done on the screen, and I'm still trying to learn the areas that, you know, that these characters are saying that these enemies are at, like such as when you're hearing enemy at the barbershop. To this day, I still don't know where the barbershop is. I know that I've been in a barbershop, but I don't have concrete evidence that I'm there, because I'm just strolling around the maps trying to determine where my enemies are. But for the most part, the callouts, they're not really as harmful as they once were. Claymores have gotten a pretty considerable nerf in this update. Both the trigger and the damage range have both been reduced, and if you are at full health and you destroy a claymore, you will not be killed by it, and I think that is a good thing. There is no con to this from my personal experience. It is nothing but pros on this end. I mean, the only con that I would have is that people are still using them, not as much, but they're being used, so please keep that in mind whenever you're turning those corners or whenever you're approaching and going through those doorways. I could probably count with one hand how many times I've died by claymores since this update has been released. I haven't had much engagement with claymores. I think people are kind of putting them up in favor of other equipment, and I think that is a good thing. If I die by claymore, I just die by claymore. They're not frustrating. They're not as frustrating to be killed by as they once were, because I don't see them as often. Now, the much dreaded 725 shotgun did receive a nerf as well, although it received a buff at the same time because the ADS speed was increased on it, although the damage range on it was reduced. So in my personal experience, when I've had engagements against the 725 shotgun, if it was at range, it was a 2-shot kill instead of the 1-shot kill that we've all been experiencing, and I wasn't getting sniped from halfway across the map. Now, this is only my personal experience, so if you guys have had different experiences when engaging against the shotgun, please let me know down in the comment section. The only con that I have to this is the obvious con. At the end of the day, it is still a shotgun, and this game encourages camping like I previously put out, so keep that in mind when somebody is playing with their tails tucked between their legs and they are just buried deep into a corner waiting for you to turn. That thing will still light you up. The M4 was also nerfed as well, although I still think that it is a pretty solid weapon. You are seeing some gameplay clips of me using the M4, and I actually have a best class setup here in the works for the M4 post 1.07 update, so just stay tuned for that one. Player movement got a significant boost here. We are moving around the map slightly faster than we were at the game's release, and I think that's a good thing to have, especially since this comes at the same time that the footsteps got nerfed. I'm over reliant on dead silence, so especially on these smaller maps, when I equip my dead silence and I activate it, I feel more comfortable rushing and challenging certain areas, especially if I know I can successfully challenge that. Now, the con that I have to this is a pretty important con. You take the nerf of the footsteps, you take the buff of the player movement, and then you take skill-based matchmaking into consideration, and the lobbies are going to be generally sweatier than we were used to seeing at the beginning of the game. The sweat in the beginning of the game's release was mostly people just camping, but now since more people are feeling encouraged to rush a little bit more, you might have those matches, especially on these smaller maps where you are being blindsided. And take into consideration that we don't have a traditional mini-map, it makes for a pretty unpredictable experience. We all got to sink our teeth into the new Shoot House map, and Shoot House, everybody describes it as Modern Warfare's version of Nuketown. It is a 3-lane map, which comes as a surprise because there aren't any 3-lane maps, or there weren't any 3-lane maps in Modern Warfare beforehand. Now, the map is not without its criticisms, from me anyway. I don't like the fact that it is so insanely cluttered and that there's way too many flank points, especially with the spawns on this game being as bad as they are, but I can appreciate the fact that there's not as much verticality as there are in some of the other maps that come with this game. Now, given everything I just put out, there was a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. I feel like this is something that needs to be considered in the next update, so I hope Infinity Ward is acknowledging the feedback, because these are two of the biggest things that has been posted on Twitter, and I know that they see this. I just hope they stop playing with our emotions and going ahead and give this to us. Number one, let's go ahead and get the traditional minimap back. The backspawn camping, especially with this most recent update, the backspawn camping is going to be the culprit for the slow matches. People can't sound whore the way they used to, so they're going to find a way to counter that, or rather they have found a way to counter it. They're just going to sit in the back, they're just going to chill out and dare you to come to them. Second, as much as I respect Drifter, I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with the big homie on this one, but skill-based matchmaking is implemented into this game for obvious reasons. One of the main reasons being that we can't even stay in the same lobby after we complete a match. We get thrown into a different lobby, and those lobbies come based on our previous performances, and they heavily affect our gameplay because kill death ratio is heavily considered instead of internet connection, so it's going to make for a pretty inconsistent gameplay experience. I hope that Infinity Ward understands this. And piggybacking those statements, with skill-based matchmaking, considering your kill-death ratio over your internet connection or your ping, it's also going to create sweaty lobbies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Before the game's release, Infinity Ward did put out that they wanted to create a fun experience for players. You know, they didn't want the casual or new people getting smacked around every single time and causing them to eventually give up on the game, but at the same time, they also didn't want to promote sweaty lobbies. But that's kind of what's happening here, especially with some of us veteran players that are having some pretty decent matches. With skill-based matchmaking, we can't even play casual. There's some days where, yes, maybe we want to go all out, but there are also some days where we just want to play the game casually, kick back and have fun. We can't do that because we have to have the ultimate focus if we want to perform even to the most basic of a decent level. There's no fun in that. That's kind of why this game only gets maybe 30 minutes to an hour out of me at best in increments, because I just don't find it fun that we have to sit here and then just be sweaty and sweat and sweat and sweat. I can't emphasize that word enough. It's not really a thrill to deal with. So I hope Infinity Ward understands that in the next update. And with that being said, that's going to pretty much do it for today's video. Once again, we are that close to 100 subscribers. So if you found this video to be helpful or useful and you're brand new to the channel, please feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on all post notifications. And if you are subscribed to the channel, feel free to drop a like and help get this video some traction. I will have more videos posted soon, but as always, this is your boy Rob James. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.